Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville, and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the City Council performing the housing functions of the former Victorville Redevelopment Agency. First item on the agenda is public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council? All right, seeing no one, I will have our declaration of closed session by our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor McEachran. We have 5 closed session items this evening. 2 of them are pertaining to existing litigation in accordance with Government Code 54956.9A. The parties and the cases and the case numbers are set forth. Those are items 2 and 3, and they're pertain to condemnation actions related to the Nisqually interchange. Items 4 and 5 are real property negotiations in accordance with Government Code 54956.8. Again, the parties to the transactions and the locations of the properties are set forth in the agenda items. And lastly, we have a closed session item pursuant to Government Code 54957B, which is public employee performance evaluation for the city manager. To the extent there is reportable action, we will report the action either at the close of the closed session or immediately prior to the commencement of the 7 o'clock regular session.
All right, we'll now move into closed session.
The whole world is edible, by the way. Incredible. I would amazed anybody would starve to death in this on this planet when you know about it. Yeah. Including plants and animals and everything. Oh yeah.
Good evening. I'd like to call back to order the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville, and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the City Council performing the housing functions of the former Victorville Redevelopment Agency. At this time, I'll have our city attorney announce any items out of closed session.
Thank you, Mayor McEachran. We had closed session on 5 items, 2 of which dealt with existing litigation, 2 of which were real property negotiations, and the 5th item was dealing with a review performance evaluation of the city manager. There is a reportable action with respect to item number 3. It's the proposed settlement of a condemnation action. The council voted 4-1, with Councilmember Valles voting no, to approve a settlement for the acquisition of property listed on item number 3. The property is owned by Robert W. Barker, trustee, et al. It's case number 1002130. Settlement terms are essentially that the City Council has agreed to acquire the property. It's part of the condemnation for the Nisqually interchange property. We are essentially acquiring 37,999 square feet and some additional property for a temporary construction easement equating to approximately 16,523 square feet. The acquisition price for that property will be settlement number that was part of the settlement negotiations of $700,000. 50% of that will be reimbursable. And again, this is property required for the right-of-way on the Nisqually interchange.
All right, this time we'll move into our invocation, which will be led by Minister John Began, and from the Victor Valley Church of Christ, and Pledge of Allegiance by our Police Chief, Don Yoder.
Will you bow with me? Father, we just want to thank you for today and for this amazing country as we get ready to celebrate our freedom tomorrow. My prayer is that we will remember why we are free and the blessings that come with it. But also, Lord, help us to remember the responsibility that comes with that freedom. May we be a country and a community here in the high desert that seeks justice and mercy and compassion. May our yes be yes. But with each council member, Father, we ask that you be with them and give them wisdom and understanding in what is best for everyone involved. Just want to thank you for your love and for your grace and your kindness and for this amazing nation. It is in Christ's name we offer up this prayer. Amen.
Of the United States of America All right, at this time, I'll have the city clerk present the agenda to the council.
The City Council of the City of Victorville welcomes the public's participation in tonight's meeting. It is requested that all present please silence cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices, and that personal conversations be kept to a minimum during the conduct of the meeting. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item which appears on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards that have been placed on the agenda table in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk for the record prior to consideration of the item. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card when the item comes up for discussion by the city council. The public comment period is the time and place for the general public to address the city council on any item within their jurisdiction that is not on the agenda. It is requested that a speaker card also be submitted to the city clerk for anyone who wishes to address the city council during the public comment period. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less, as deemed necessary by the mayor, depending upon the number of individuals desiring to speak. All communications are to be addressed directly to the city council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Individuals who fail to adhere to these guidelines may be asked to yield the floor. Any individual or group who engages in disruptive conduct during the meeting will be removed from the chambers by order of the mayor. Disruptive conduct includes, but is not limited to, addressing the council without being recognized, not addressing the subject before the council, repetitiously addressing the same subject, failing to relinquish the podium when requested to do so, verbal outbursts or comments from the audience. Thank you for your cooperation and adherence to these rules. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council, and there are no revisions that have been submitted for tonight's agenda.
All right, we will now move into public comment, and the first card I have is Dorothy Miller.
Hello, Council. We have a few little things going on again. I come in today to get my dog's tags. You know what? I stood in line over 15 minutes waiting to get up there to pay for my dog tags. Now, the general public is really getting taken here. We did not hire the people back. We hired temporary help down there, and things are not getting done like they should have. I mean, we used to have things going through there real fast. Now they're lining up way down the aisle. Now, that's not fair to the general public. I feel that we should have people in there that we've had in there that knows what they're doing, not getting temporary help in here. I know it saves you money. You don't pay all the bonies, but we can give raises to some of the people rather than bring the people back that was here before. Thank you.
Thank you. Norm Miller? You had 2 cards, so I just want to make sure. I have 2. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add a comment. We did have some problems with our phone system this morning. The customer service lines were not working until about 9:15 or 9:30, so it did end up creating a very long line. We apologize for any inconvenience for that. We were able to get it corrected after a couple of hours. We have not laid anybody off in customer service. We did hire some temps recently in order to assist as we transition from the old PeopleSoft system to the new Munis system, and we don't anticipate a need for long-term employees once that sort of transition period is over.
David Runels?
Mayor, City Council members, thank you. My name is David Runnels. I live in Victorville, and I do have a concern. Traveling south on 7th Street, that's like going towards Green Tree Inn, on the corner of 7th and La Paz, the mast that holds signal lights is too short. The signal lights are aligned with the wrong lanes. For example, there's a left-hand turn lane, but the arrows for turning left align with the first lane, which goes straight, and the green, yellow, and red light is over the second lane. And this has caused confusion for some motorists. For example, when the light turns green, some people who are in front in the first lane just stay there. They see this red arrow right in front of them, waiting for the light to turn green. Also, I saw a person turn left in the first lane when the green arrow turned on, or came on, I should say. Technically speaking, and according to the 2012 DMV California Driver's Handbook, anyone who drives against a red arrow is breaking the law. For public safety, I strongly recommend that mast be replaced with one that is the proper size. Any questions?
Agree.
Oh,
I go through an intersection every day. I agree with you.
oh, is there,
I agree too.
I did bring the DMV California Driver's Handbook with me, and it's pretty explicit. Red arrow. A red arrow means stop. End of sentence. Remain stopped until green signal or green arrow appears. Do not turn against a red arrow. End of subject.
We'll have our city engineer and traffic look into that and definitely get back to you. I don't disagree either. I've been through that intersection as well, and I've heard plenty complaints about it, so thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Barbara Powers?
Council members, Barbara Powers with the Old Town Route 66 Committee ad hoc to the City Council. And I just want to compliment the engineers who have put in the stop signs and the crosswalk signs and some of the things we've requested. However, I am very sad to say the A and C are still, they're not stopping even with the crosswalk signs. They don't see them. We put up right signs, and they still don't see them. I nearly got hit the other day, and there was two children with a mother, and they nearly got hit the other day. I mean, we see it every day, every single day. We have to have a stop sign. We have to have a stop sign. We've already had one person killed, and I can't see more. Just shouldn't be done. So the other situation is, okay, we have, if you've seen the pictures that's been painted on some of the buildings in Old Town, they're very dramatic. It's I'll get her name in a minute. Marcy Taylor is painting those. And we're decorating the town, and we have Route 66 signs, and we're doing a lot of work down there. And today, I got a message from the people that were in town. The medical marijuana dispensary just opened up across the street, and we could smell everything. Now, isn't that going to be great for all the people that come in from all the different states to walk down and see all our beautiful paintings with marijuana smell? That's the second dispensary. There's two now in 2 blocks. Something wrong with this. I really feel my suggestion is, since Hesperia banned their medical marijuana, I really think a vote, this should come before the council. This could be on the agenda. I hope you'll do that. This is very serious. It causes the crime. We don't have our substation down there yet, and it's just been ridiculous. Here we are greeting all these 7,000 to 10,000 people coming to Victorville to go up and down 7th Street. For why? For marijuana shops and that kind of, I just really feel if you don't want to ban it, we'll wait till November and get new people in, and it'll be banned then. Thank you.
I defer to our city attorney. do believe we have taken some sort of action with respect to this.
We have taken some actions. It's basically being handled primarily by code enforcement at this point in time. We can tighten things up even more. It's a very fluid situation, federal versus state. Federal has been very active in enforcing the closure of the facilities. You don't permit them, I don't believe. It's basically been a code enforcement to date, but we can certainly strengthen and look at what you have on the books today. We're doing it with a lot of other cities as well.
We have a very similar ban to what Hesperia did. One thing that Hesperia went above and beyond what ours does is they have an extremely high daily fine of $1,000. Ours is significantly less than that. At this point, the Supreme Court is actually going to be reviewing this whole issue for the entire state. So the advice that we've had kind of from the League of Cities is to hold off on doing too much, because legal fees that we spend now could be basically thrown away once the Supreme Court rules. And so the actions that we take would be better spent after the Supreme Court has ruled. So that's kind of the direction that we've taken with regard to medical marijuana dispensaries. We do have code enforcement that will go out and issue citations if you've got complaints about certain locations, certainly. But we have not taken an aggressive stance in the courts for fear that anything we do is going to be overturned or potentially changed significantly by the Supreme Court ruling.
And the courts in California are all over the board. Certain courts are supporting it, and other courts are upholding bans. So,
Well, at least for the time being, I would suggest, Barbara, if you could, I mean, obviously we know where you're at down there in Old Town. Talk with code enforcement and make sure that they have those locations and that they visit them. All right. Thank you. David Mueller?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Dave Mueller. I'm with HighDesertPolitics.org. I'm kind of astounded that there's almost nobody in the audience tonight, maybe 13 people, considering the grand jury probe report that came out. I just wanted to mention that there was a story in the High Desert Daily. It's called the site for positive news, and I consider that particular site propaganda. And the reason I say that is it's a pretty well known fact that Buck Johns and Mr. Miguel Gonzalez are funding that. Mr. Johns is funding that site. And but what was really astounding was the article on June 30th, which had interviews from various council members basically saying, well, we weren't convicted of anything. There weren't any crimes found, which if Ms. Metzger had read the report, Mr. Rose in his results said that there were violations, but he's not the judge or jury. So that doesn't mean there weren't violations found. So I found that report to be skewed. And personally, I would think that the Victorville citizens should be outraged. There's $13 million unaccounted for with CBS Aviation. $13 million unaccounted for. But there's no criminal wrongdoing because we haven't been arrested yet. We haven't been indicted yet. It's really a shame. Tomorrow we celebrate our independence in this nation, and look at our nation. Look what it's become. We have corrupt officials from local all the way up to in my opinion, the president. And even the citizens don't seem to care anymore. There's nobody here tonight. That's really a shame. It's a sad statement about where our country is. We just pledged our allegiance to the flag, and look at what we have here in this high desert. I just want to say that I do believe there will be indictments coming down. I don't think you're out of the woods. I think it's just a matter of time that the FBI and the SEC does close the loop on you. And I think some of you are going to be indicted. Probably not Mr. Kennedy. He wasn't on the council. Definitely won't be Councilwoman Vallis. She wasn't on the council. But the other three, and the city attorney and these two gentlemen, I think there will be indictments. Thank you.
All right, that's all the cards I have under public comment. We'll now move into our regular agenda. Under the Library Board of Trustees, there were no items at time of posting. Under the Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, there were no items at time of posting. Under the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, there were no items at time of posting. Under the successor agency to the RDA, there were no items at time of posting. Under the Joint Powers Financing Authority, again, no items at time of posting. And under the Victorville Water District, no items at time of posting. As well as City Council performing housing functions of the former RDA, there were no items at time of posting. So we'll move on to agenda item number 9. This is the City Council. This is continued public hearings. And to our city attorney, can we handle all of these at once with the exception of one?
You could, yeah, I have concerns over item 9B, that there may be a conflict, maybe just a perception of a conflict of interest with respect to Councilwoman Valles because of her, where she lives in proximity to that landscape maintenance district. It may also affect the city manager. So if you'd like to pull that item, and then they can, you could, or handle that item first, they should be, they should excuse themselves from participating.
All right, well then, we'll go ahead and handle agenda item 9A, C, D, E, F, G, and H at this time. We'll open the public hearing on those items. With respect to a public hearing called to hear arguments for and against the confirmation of annual assessments for all the landscape maintenance districts, approval of the engineer's report, and adoption of those resolutions. So I'll open the public hearing on agenda item, again, number 9A, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Anyone wishing to address the council at this time on those items?
Mr. Mayor, I know this is an abundance of caution, but actually the assistant city manager happens to live in the area for the LMAD for C. Mr. Attorney, I don't know if he's in a position that could be an appearance of a conflict or not.
No, I don't think he rises to the level of being able to influence the decision-making of this body.
All right, anyone wishing to address the council on those items? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on agenda item number 9A, C, D, E, F, G, and H, and return to the council for decision.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrera, second by Councilmember Rothschild.
I don't.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we will now hear agenda item number 9B. This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville confirming annual assessments for the maintenance of landscape areas in Eagle Ranch Landscape Maintenance Assessment District Number 2 for fiscal year 2012-2013. I'll open the public hearing on agenda item number 9B. Anyone wishing to address the council on that item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and return it to the council.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrales. Motion carries with Councilmember Valles absent.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 10. And can we handle 10 and 11 together?
Yes, as long as you open the public hearings and it's clear that the public hearings are for both items.
All right. We'll open the public hearing on agenda items number 10 and 11, called to hear arguments for and against confirmation of annual assessments for all drainage facilities assessment districts, approval of the engineer's report, and adoption of the following resolutions. Again, I'm going to open the public hearing on agenda items number 10 and 11. Anyone wishing to address the council at this time? All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and return it to the council for a decision.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrera, second by Councilmember Vyas. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, agenda item number 12 is our consent calendar.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 13, this is a request to authorize a one-year contract renewal option with Stoffers Landscape, Inc. for routine landscape maintenance services for an amount not to exceed $365,700 and for specialized landscape maintenance services for an amount not to exceed $335,100.
So this contract, they only had it for a year so far?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so if we exercise this option, we'll go out to RFP next time?
There actually was additional 3 years of options, so if we're still satisfied next year, you could authorize 2 additional years in sequence after this year. If council prefers us to go out for RFP again, they can so indicate, and next year we could do that.
Well, you know, I've mentioned this before, that I think that, you know, I don't mind doing the 2-year, but I think that anything after that, it would be nice to give, you know, other companies an opportunity to bid, because I know there's other hungry people out there that could do this. So, you know, do we have a policy on how often we go out to RFP?
There's no hard and fast policy, no. In this case, typically if we bid something with a 3-year option, we would exercise all 3 of those years to the extent that we're happy with the service they're providing. It does give us an out, and ultimately, next spring, if the council would prefer us to go to RFP, you can give us that direction at that time, and we would do the RFP at that time.
And I guess I should have asked this before. Is this a conflict because they do it in Eagle Ranch?
I believe their services are broader than just that facility, that area, citywide, so I don't see a conflict.
Well, if you looked at the service, what was it, 2 years ago, and what you see now, it's a vast difference. And I did survey the area a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and some of the work was not being done. But now I look around, and I think they're doing a great job.
No, I agree. It was like night and day, the work. They are doing a very good job. I'm just wondering if we could go out to RFP after like 2 years, but it doesn't matter tonight. Go ahead.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrera, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 14 is request to approve a consultant professional service standard provider agreement with Albert Grover and Associates for traffic engineering services, an amount not to exceed $117,000.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrialis. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 15 is request to approve an agreement with Project Partners for Water Systems Engineering in the amount of $153,000.
I have a question. This is to hire a temp engineer, correct?
That's correct.
And is this the 153? Is this for a whole year?
It's the entire contract amount. This temp engineer started a few months ago. Sean, I'm not sure exactly when, but it's been at least a few months ago. And this extends it into next fiscal year, or I guess this fiscal year, extends that contract to do the work that was previously done by 2 employees who left in, I want to say, May or maybe early June.
Mm-hmm. I guess my question is how many months are we getting for 153?
Mr. McGlade, if you could come up to respond to that.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the 153 would be a full year's worth of contract services. Our hope would be to go out for recruitment and fill one of those vacant positions, not knowing exactly how long that's going to take. Then we are asking for a contract for the full year, with the ability then, once we hire someone permanently, then that contract would terminate.
Okay, I saw an 8-month extension on this one. So just, why wouldn't you just hire in the first place? Are we waiting on something?
The anticipation is that we would have 4 months to hire someone. If that did not happen, then we want to have the ability and the flexibility then to keep this person on the job until we get a replacement.
So this person started when?
About 5 or 6 weeks ago.
I see. So we're just kind of doing this after the fact?
Well, the initial contract was less than 25,000 within staff's authority.
Okay.
We had to move forward quickly and try and cover the hole that was left by the 2 engineers leaving.
So is it the 153 plus the 25?
Yes, that would be correct. The 25 brought us up to the end of the last fiscal year. The 153 is going forward in this fiscal year.
I still didn't understand why we wouldn't just go out for a recruitment.
We certainly intend to. One of the conditions of getting a contract engineer at that price was to commit to a 6-month contract. So the 2 months before in the past fiscal year.
I see what you're saying. You want to hire from this agency.
That is one of the potentials, and it's quite frankly looking very attractive, but we still have to go through a recruitment process. And in that intervening time, then we need to have the services covered by this contract engineer.
And then once they work so many months, you don't have to pay for them. They're free. Is that correct?
No, I mean, we want to have the ability within a contract with them to have the flexibility from the 4th month to the 12th month.
Mm-hmm. I know what you're saying, but when you go for a temp agency, they have to work for a certain amount of months. Otherwise, you would pay like $20,000 to hire them to the agency if you wanted them. Do you get what I'm saying?
It's not a temp agency in that respect. This is they specialize in professional engineers.
Okay. I guess I'm not getting my question answered. Why wouldn't you go out for, if you have a vacant position, you tell HR and they recruit for it?
Yeah, we are doing that. Our HR division is one that, because we weren't doing any recruitments, had some pretty severe cuts to it, and had some layoffs as well. So we aren't exactly staffed up to do the recruitments. They've been focused on the benefits and just maintenance types of programs. So we are going to be doing a recruitment as quickly as we can get one done. But in the interim, we need some engineering assistance on these specialized water projects. So until we get somebody, this person will fill that need. Ultimately, it sounds like the contract has an option that we could end up hiring this person, but it's not. It wasn't flown, or it wasn't contracted as a recruitment type of contract that there's that fee involved if we don't use them for so many months. That's not the style.
Okay. And then how much does an engineer normally cost if you would have recruited?
Sean?
With benefits?
With benefits, it's very, very close to the same amount of money, actually.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right, do you have a card on this item, David Mueller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Again, my name is Dave Mueller. I'm with highdesertpolitics.org. And I went through the Project Partners contract, and as Councilwoman Vallis said, it's essentially a rent and engineer outfit. And that's what Zemina Zambrano's contract is also under Agenda Item 17. The address for Ms. Zambrano in the contract is a residence in Santa Ana. Who does she do engineering for, and what is her license number? Both contract recitals say you need them both for various projects. Ms. Zambrano's has the same specific location where her work will be accomplished. At least there are some specific locations where work will be accomplished. But it sounds like it's traffic signal work, and actual scope of work is getting environmental clearances. That's what her contract says. Project Partners, though, on the other hand, has only a recital in the scope of work that they will be doing water engineering and, again, various projects. What exactly are both of them doing? Is Ms. Zambrano the same Zamina Zambrano who works for Inland Empire Utility Agency, which is a municipal water agency in Colton? This is an open session, and the time to inform the public about what they are doing is now. The public has the right to know what these people are specifically going to be doing, not various projects. Various projects means anything you want it to mean. Today it means one thing, tomorrow it's something else. Get specific and comply with the Brown Act. The public can't account for work product if the contracts were worded so they do not know what to look for. That's why it's worded that way. No, how is anybody supposed to account for that? We don't even know what they're doing. And you're intentionally doing this. Mr. DeBortnowski, are you sure you are an attorney? And are you representing the interest of the citizens of Victorville? Because that wording was intentional. You need, or Mr. Robertson or Mr. McGlade needs to explain what water projects and the specifics of the water project, because the people are entitled to know that. How can they track something that they don't even know what you're talking about? That's how you got into the place you are right now with your grand jury probe. Thank you.
Is there a job description for this position available online?
Actually, the scope of services is in your agenda as Exhibit A. It doesn't list specific projects because we don't know what projects this person may or may not be working on over the next 4 to potentially 12 months. Depends on what projects come to the city. But it is very detailed in the engineering analysis that will be taking place, in the project management that will be taking place, and in the contract administration that will be taking place. That appears as page 166 of your agenda tonight.
Robertson, I've got a question. Would we know what our city engineer would be performing or looking at today if, say 2-3 months down the road, we had a potential employer that wanted to come into our community and, create 100 jobs? Would we know that today?
No, that would be impossible to know. In fact, typically a job description would include things such as work on various projects.
So would that hold true throughout the entire city with respect to various departments, whether it be development, finance, whatever the case may be? If Mr. Metzler was able to negotiate a deal with a particular user and have that business come in, and we had to start doing work to bring that business into this community, we wouldn't know that today, and so therefore we would have to ramp up and have those various people involved in that project to get the various work done that needs to be done.
That's correct. I would imagine the scope of services is based very similarly on the job description for the 2 engineers who recently left us, who were experts in water issues.
Okay.
I have a question. When it says total amount budgeted in the account is $233,000, so
which total are we talking about, please?
we are talking about item 15.
That's correct.
Right.
Total amount budgeted in the account is $233,717.
Okay. When For that account, does that include, is that account for consulting, or is that account for that position? Because obviously we have a vacancy in that position, so usually when you have a vacancy, you kind of count that money if you're going to hire like a temp.
Right, that account would be a professional services account, and that's the total amount in the account right now in the city's budget. The remaining balance you see there is $80,717, and that's assuming that the entire $153,000 that's we're asking for authorization is spent. Obviously, if we don't use all 12 months, then that amount would go down, as would the remaining balance would go up as a result. If you see the budget amount of $153,000, that tells you that this budget was developed based on a knowledge that we would need this engineering firm for that work at potentially $153,000.
I guess my biggest problem with this item is that we have a human resource department, and we don't just open up a recruitment and hire for that position. I could understand it if we want to, we're not sure if we're going to hire that position, and maybe the work is just, going to be over, so why have a position forever if it's just a small amount of work? So that's the problem that I have with this. But it sounds like we're always going to need this position. So why didn't we do it? And you're saying that there was no time or staffing to do it.
Right. At this point, we have not opened the recruitment. We will be opening it shortly, and to the extent that we can get it recruited more quickly, then the amount of cost that would go to this budget amount would certainly be significantly less.
Okay, so we're not going to use them for 12 months, but this can be prorated, and we don't have to pay the whole 153.
Exactly.
And we can terminate this contract within 30 days.
I believe that's the termination clause. Yes, 30 days. Sean's shaking his head yes.
Okay.
Just fills the gap while we do the recruitment.
Okay, I get it. That makes sense.
Mayor, just as a side interesting, I was hired as an engineer with Lockheed, and the time they hired me, they said they were going to ask me. They asked me to, you'll be working on the L-1011. They were developing that airplane at the time, and I says, I'll do anything you ask me to do. They put me into structural engineering first, and then 6 months later, I was in the computer analysis areas, and finally avionics. I went into 3 different areas, none of which was I had on my credentials or my background, but they know that engineers are generally adaptable to most any area within their broad field of expertise. I'm sure in the areas that we're talking about here, and certainly civil engineering, there's a broad area that you can bring them into, and to describe them as various tasks, I think is an appropriate a way to describe the work.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrera, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Item number 16 is request to award a contract to Lilburn Corporation for preparation of environmental documents for Air Expressway Lift Station and Force Main in the amount of $27,680.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrales. Motion carries unanimously.
And item number 17 is request to extend the term of the service provider agreement for Ximena Zambrano until December 1st, 2013 for a contract not to exceed the amount of $40,000.
Has this individual worked for the city before?
Yes, Jimena is how you pronounce it, by the way. It's okay. I think she gets that all the time. She previously worked for the city. I believe she went out on a maternity leave, and ultimately we determined that she was the best one to continue to do some work. She was not interested in coming back full-time. So we have contracted with her for the last couple of years because she is excellent at performing the environmental work that we need for the specific projects that are listed in your agenda.
And we don't have any staff in Sean's department that can do this, because I do believe this contract came up, and I had questioned it, I think, last year. And and they said that they were going to work on, if I remember correctly, getting staff up to date, and now it seems like we're giving it away again. I mean, where are we at on training staff to get this done?
Again, I'd ask Mr. McGlade to come down to respond to that. I do notice that the item is only through December of this year.
That would be, in fact, December of next year,
I'm
December
sorry.
2013.
I'm sorry.
So that would exhaust the options in the contract. It's only for $40,000. It's specifically for various projects that we have grant funds for, and that's where the expertise comes in because of the intricate nature and detailed information that some of the granting agencies need, that we've already sent her to training for that. It just seems more viable to utilize her expertise rather than spending time training our staff. And as I've noted before, we've had a reduction of 7 individuals in the engineering department.
Do we not have like any grant writers or any type of environmental people that work here?
As Councilman Rothschild said, typically engineers are pretty flexible. I think in this case, we see the value in continuing this work to be done by Ms. Zambrano. But certainly we do have some folks that could write grants. I believe in Mr. McGlade's opinion, it was more efficient to continue to use Ms. Zambrano. Sean, how does her pay compare to a regular staff city engineer's pay, associate engineer or whatever, who would be doing this type of work for us?
That would probably be done at least at an associate level. This is probably at par with that. I really haven't done that comparison. It's, like I say, it's a small amount spread over, the next 18 months. And when you look at either recruiting someone to be a permanent employee or looking at training individuals to do that same amount of work, it just seems it's a lot more cost effective for us to do this minor contract with someone who has proved to us in the past that they're very, very good at what they do.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrales. Motion carries with Councilmember Valles voting no.
Agenda item number 18 is request to approve or deny a variance from the requirement to connect to the public sewer system for property located at 12770 Fifth Avenue.
Do I recuse myself?
In accordance with the memo we previously set forth in the past, initially you would recuse yourself to avoid any appearance. I don't see that there's a direct conflict, certainly not an FPPC type conflict. If you want to avoid any appearance of bias, then I'd recommend that you recuse yourself.
I did recuse myself from these before.
Then you should continue to do that. It's just to avoid any possible appearance of bias. It's not a conflict of interest as such. It's more the appearance of bias.
Oh, I just had one comment on this, Mr. Mayor. The lady who wrote her note to the council, I was very sympathetic to her issues. I do want to comment that on her comment that our ordinance is insane, and I can't remember what the other word, but insane was one of them. I don't believe the ordinance is insane or inappropriate. I think it's well designed and it has an important place in our community. But I also understand the economics and the burden this would place on her. So I have no problem approving. We've approved other variances.
I feel the same way. The ordinance was adopted for the purpose of ensuring that the whole city would at some time be sewer, because that's how you develop a cost-effective system. In any other period, we would be voting no for this request, but the economy is not kind to anyone, and we have to, we have to have some sense of compassion for some of these people that are going through hard times.
Motion by Councilmember Kennedy, second by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrales to approve the variance. Motion carries with Councilmember Rothschild voting no and Councilmember Vyas absent.
Agenda item number 19 is requested to reject all bids for the 2012 Hot Rubber Cape Seal project in the Golden Triangle and authorize staff to advertise with modifications to the scope. I do have a card on this, Nora Miller.
Well, this kind of caught me by surprise because we've been talking about this a little bit. And, you know, we wanted to put the money in Bear Valley Road, which you didn't want to. You wanted to do the 3 roads in the Golden Triangle, which I said was fine because you're going to crack seal them, and that's what they need. This bid came in, one bid came in for about $970 over budget, and that doesn't seem like enough to take that away from those 3 streets and put it onto another street for just doing slurry work. We need to seal the cracks. That's important, and I think this shouldn't be overturned. I think it should go to this company, because if only one company bid on it, what are you going to get next time? It has to be rebid. That's going to cost you more than $1,000 to do that with all the paperwork and everything. So I would like to recommend that you accept the bid and do the work that you wanted to have done originally. Thank you.
John, could you come forward and explain to the council exactly why you would like us to reject all bids?
Every time we get a bid, excuse me, a single bid coming in, we want to scrutinize it very carefully. In this case, we certainly took previous comments from Mr. Miller to heart and took a close, hard look at the utilization of the funds that we have in putting it into just 3 streets in the Golden Triangle. So our proposal would be to reject this bid, receive authorization to go out to bid for a crack seal and slurry seal. The amount of money that we would save, we think it's going to be a lot more competitive. Cape Seal is fairly specialized, and that probably explains why we got a single bid. We think it's going to be more competitive going for a crack seal and slurry seal, get a better price, and then with the money saved, we're very concerned about Village Drive, and we want to look at doing the worst portion of that, doing a Cape Seal on that.
John, I'm not a street guy. Can you explain to us what a hot rubber Cape Seal is versus a crack and slurry seal?
The Cape Seal would be a 2-stage application. One would be a chip seal and then a slurry seal over that. So you're basically crack sealing in both cases, but you're saving the chip seal cost, which is quite high. So if you like, there's 3 parts to the original project. There would still be 2 parts to it that we would propose to receive authorization to bid again.
But we're going to seal the cracks.
Seal the cracks and then slurry the surface.
All right, thank you.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrales, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 20 is a request to adopt a resolution relating to the recognition of County Route 66 and the establishment of the County Route 66 through the City of Victorville as set forth in Resolution 12-035. I do have a card on this. Paul Chasey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members and city staff. I'm Paul Chassie with the California Route 66 Museum, and I'm very pleased to see this resolution that you want to recognize Route 66 that has been going through this town for many, many years. As you know, the museum has been trying to make Victorville a destination for our Route 66 travelers. The museum is certainly that. We've seen an increase in international tourists this year, probably 10 or 15% over last year. We're having a festival this year, which you're all aware of, the Route 66 International Festival 2012. We hope to see more tourists there. You've noticed that Barbara spoke earlier about trying to revitalize Old Town Victorville with some signage and making a place that when people come here, they want to stop and linger and buy some gas, maybe have something to eat besides just visit the museum. And I think this is a great step forward, I believe, tonight. And I hope that you'll approve the installation of the county road markers, which are desperately needed in this city and along Route 66 in California. Most other states recognize Route 66 as a tourist economic boon to them, and I think this is a great step that the city is doing and the county. I'm sure you're well aware that the museum has commissioned a mural to put on the east side of the building. If you went by in the last couple of days, you'll see some progress on it. And again, we want to have that done before the festival. And I have no doubt this will be an extremely popular attraction with people just flocking to that side of the building and have their picture taken like they do just on the other side, which just has a few little pictures and signs. So again, I want to hope that the city would consider participating in our mural project. I left something for Mr. Robertson today regarding perhaps having the city involved in supporting this. We'd like to see that seal alongside the city, the San Bernardino County seal on the mural. And I think all of us working together by putting some signage up, recognizing as you're doing tonight, we'll get some more of these tourists to recognize that Victorville is a place not only just to see the museum, but to stop in and spend some time and some money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work, Paul.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrera, second by Councilmember Baez. Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item number 21 is a request to approve the settlement agreement by and between Irving Shook Lee and Catherine S. Lee, trustees of the Lee Family Trust, Panyang Fung, California, Inc., and the City of Victorville settlement, the matter of the City of Victorville versus Lee et al., which is a condemnation case for the La Mesa Nisqually Road project. I do have a card on this item. That's David Miller.
Good evening once again, Council, Mayor. I found on March 20th, 2012, that this eminent domain issue became a closed session topic. You can find that. That's when it was announced that it's going to be discussed. These two settlements are $830,000 plus land swap for something that the council knew when the industrial park was getting put in, that you were going to be doing this interchange. I mean, the interchange has been something you've known forever. But what I found particularly disturbing was in the report I read, the courts said you won. So why are you paying? If you were able to claim eminent domain, why are you paying? But, I'm not privy to what goes on in your closed sessions. But I'd like to know, what date did you announce an agreement had been reached from closed session? Before I came tonight, I went through all your minutes, all the way back to March 20th. There was no announcement from closed session. Now, I'm pretty sure the grand jury, they mentioned that's happened before, where you have things going on in closed session. You don't let the public know what's going on, and they admonished you for that. violations of the Brown Act. You're doing it again. You just don't learn, do you? You don't care. You will care, I think. You will care, I think. So, please find for me in your minutes, not something that I researched, your minutes, where it was announced that a decision had been reached and what that decision was. I couldn't find it. I want to go back to agenda item 15 real quickly. You basically admitted that you don't have any work for the water engineering firm. You just admitted that, Mayor. So why are you hiring somebody? The city is practically broke. Your reserves are down, well, they don't even register at the budget workshop you did. I didn't even see a number. So, but you're hiring people? That doesn't make sense. I mean, I know you have to have engineers on staff should something come up, but why are you ground down to the point that you don't have engineers on staff? But back to the closed session issue, I'd like Mr. D. Bortnowski to show me in the minutes that are published for the public when that was announced. Thank you.
Am I wrong in thinking that one of the rules about eminent domain is that we are required to pay the person we're taking property from a fair market value?
That is typically correct.
We don't just take it and pay them nothing?
Yes, that's a constitutional protection that you would pay fair market value when you condemn property. But when you condemn property, typically that would result in trial and litigation expenses, so we always try and settle these items. A settlement of a condemnation or any kind of settlement does not need to get announced until the other side to the transaction has formally signed the settlement documents. That's why there was no announcement. The public opportunity to comment on this transaction is because it's on the full open agenda tonight. We have previously had this reviewed by the district attorney, and they have previously found absolutely that there's no problems with the way we are agendizing these types of items.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm not your attorney, but if you are looking for it in the minutes, check the minutes for the meeting you're having right now, and it will appear. That is the public comment period. This is the time that it's being announced.
Yeah, it's
and this
tonight.
is the time that it's being decided by the City Council.
Tomorrow.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabrera, second by Councilmember Kennedy. Motion carries with Councilmember Vyas voting no.
That would be a yes. Agenda item number 22 is request for council to adopt a policy allowing for the appointment of second alternates to attend board and commission meetings in the absence of the delegates and first alternate. Want to say anything regarding this?
Just that I think that's important when we have two council members out of town at the same time. It makes it difficult for, other agencies to operate, especially during budget time. We had a situation where they continued a meeting because we couldn't, they didn't feel comfortable moving forward without Victorville voicing their opinion on the matter, and it put the city manager in a difficult position where he wrote a letter to the board, and that was even an issue, but I just think it would just make things easier.
I agree.
Is direction to staff to come back and develop a policy, which I assume would be that in the event the main person to the committee and the alternate is unavailable, that then the mayor would be able to appoint the third or designate another alternate?
I believe that's the nature of the request. Can we clarify?
Yeah, that's fine, but is it possible that the council can now make it effective right now?
Certainly, it's on the agenda right now. You could adopt a policy that indicates that to the extent that the original member of the committee or JPA is not available and the designated alternate is not, you would confer upon the mayor the authority to delegate a substitute.
Agree with that?
Oh, yes.
Ready? Mike, as your
I
second?
don't have anything, my screen is not the same as the rest of you guys.
Matter of fact, we used to have a policy
You
like that because
Get this reset,
the mayor or city manager
because I'm stuck in,
write a letter.
We don't have a written policy. That may have been a practice sometime in the past. It's not something we've done recently.
withdraw that thing and won't even take that?
That's okay, Mike. You've seconded the motion, so I'll enter the vote. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cabriella, second by Councilmember Rothschild.
Oh, okay.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we'll now go into council committee reports. Ms. Fias?
I just was wondering when we were going to get the update on, or the report on the bus stop advertising.
Let me find out. I'll
Okay.
send a memo to the council later this week with
Okay.
that response.
I have nothing as well. We'll move on to agenda item number 24, discussion and possible action regarding items for the upcoming city council agenda. Mr. Rothschild?
None.
I was just wondering when the Planned Parenthood was coming back to the council?
I believe it's tentatively scheduled for the 17th of August?
August 7th.
August 7th. Thank you.
And then Walmart?
The Walmart on the east end of town near Spring Valley Lake is not scheduled at this time.
Oh, okay. And I wanted to, I've been getting a lot of phone calls from constituents complaining about the marijuana dispensaries. I got a disturbing phone call, and they were saying that they were installing fire hydrant or fire extinguishers inside these marijuana dispensaries, and that they found that 16-year-old kids were coming in with a Medi-Cal card and buying marijuana and then smoking it or selling it right out in the parking lot. And a lot of things like that were going on. And I don't know what to say to these individuals, because I, as a council member, don't really understand how they're getting in a license to operate, and why are we not, why are we allowing it, and why are we not doing anything to stop it? And I heard what you said about code enforcement, but I feel like it shouldn't have even got there that far.
Right. Unfortunately, these businesses come in, they don't have the proper paperwork, they are not licensed as a legitimate business, as a marijuana dispensary. That's not something that's allowed in Victorville. Best thing you can tell them is to ask them to call code enforcement, and code enforcement, as with all code enforcement activities, as was previous direction of the city council, they react to the complaints that they receive from the public. So the more complaints they receive about a certain location, the more times they'll get a visit from code enforcement. I think everyone on the city council, and for the most part everyone on staff, would prefer to take a much more aggressive stance with these things. Unfortunately, the state and the federal government have kind of placed us in the middle of this mess, because it's against federal law, but it's permitted under state law, and a lot of cities are spending a lot of legal fees on trying to prosecute, and some are successful, some are not, and ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, we'll all know much better once the Supreme Court makes their decision. Andre, do you have any sense for when that decision is going to be even heard by the Supreme, or when that case is going to be heard by the Supreme Court?
Not as I sit here right now, but I will send a memo out and give you an update as to where that stands. But California's been all over the board. Superior courts are ruling one way. The appeal courts some appeal courts are turning them over, overturning their decisions. It's an absolute mess out there. There's no consistency at all.
Yeah, it is illegal for them to operate. Enforcement of that can be very, very difficult, given the constraints in state law that we have to operate under.
The federal agencies are taking a far more active role, and some cities are reaching out to them, and that wouldn't be a problem here. We could reach out to the federal agencies, because once they see that there's a proliferation of them, they will start an enforcement activity, and it's still totally illegal under federal law.
Could we start with agendizing something? And I know you said that you wanted to wait, but I mean, waiting for the Supreme Court, I mean, could be forever. If we can agendize where we increase the fees to what like Hesperia is doing.
Certainly.
Good with that.
Make it difficult, and if there's any way giving code enforcement more authority to kick them out.
Absolutely be appropriate to do that.
Okay with that?
Yeah, definitely.
And then I would like to agendize getting a report back from staff regarding the cost and the impact of putting in a stop sign in Old Town where they're getting run over. That's it.
Reports from staff and council members, Ms. Robertson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I was charged with responding to the grand jury report by September 29th, and I will be preparing that response in concert with the City Council to the extent that that's appropriate. I am looking forward to being able to finally tell the story, if it were, and include all of the necessary backup documentation in order to respond to the report. Certainly there's areas that we have made significant progress in already, and I think that's evidenced by our balanced budget that you approved last week. One area of the report that I'm especially disappointed in is its vague reference to, quote, city management. We have, although Mr. Metzler and myself and the two department heads and the one acting department head have been here for some time, we did not have involvement in many of the projects that are listed in the report. In fact, I wrote a letter to the editor yesterday and submitted it. I've been given a tentative information that it's going to appear in the newspaper tomorrow, and I would encourage you all to read it.
Nothing.
Just to add a brief comment to that, all of us received a series of questions from the staff writer, and I've submitted my responses. Most of those responses, frankly, when they dealt with questions dealing with the content of the report, my response was, and this, whenever the story is published, I expect she'll report my responses, you'll just have to wait until the city's formal response is written. Some of those issues are complex. They don't fit in a one-liner response from a council member. So what I would say to the public, and I said it in my comment to Brooke Edwards, was that I hope the public stays focused on this issue. Don't just lose interest 3 or 4 weeks from now when our report is issued, or 5, or whatever it's going to take, just because these headlines are now a few weeks old. There are 2 parts to this discussion. You've heard one, there's another one, and that'll be in our report. So to fully understand all of it, you're going to have to read our response.
I would agree, although I will probably likely respond to those questions because I asked for this report some 2.5 years ago, and it's been way too long in coming. I'm glad it's out, and you know, it's what I requested. No indictments have been issued. No criminal or fraudulent activity has been found by the grand jury, and you know, from my perspective, it is some sort of vindication for the city. But that's what I asked for in the beginning. Either show me that it's occurred or show me that it's not occurred. Basically, the report says it did not occur. And that is, it is one of the 2 answers that I was looking for. If it had occurred, there should be people in here arresting council members, arresting city management. That has not occurred. And so for that, I think I'm happy because the city can move forward, and we need to move forward. So,
let me comment.
Yeah.
Just to add in, there's one area that is relevant and real, and that was the hangar deal that we did a number of years ago. In my opinion, the gentleman that we brought in to do those 4 hangars did things illegal. He got halfway through the project and then took off. I personally asked that we sue him. I was advised by senior management that's no longer here that he's broke, everybody's going after him, and we're not going to get anything out. At that time, the number that seems to come across my mind was that they thought he'd gotten away with $7 million. And if 13 million is the number, that's something that maybe these reports are that's shown. But he went off with a certain amount of that money. If the number of $103 million for the 4 hangars is a correct number, it seems reasonable, it might be. That's a fair price for those 4 hangars. Now, maybe we should have paid $90 million instead of $103 million, but the fellow stole some money from us. And he got beat up in the courtrooms to some extent, but we don't have a lawsuit on the book against him. But nevertheless, those hangars are valuable assets now. They're probably being paid off on the property tax increment that we have coming in, plus the profits from our airport. And those hangars are worth the $100 million. The GE hangar is in excess of $30 million. So all of those hangars out there are fully operational. They're making money today. And however we got there is certainly open to questions. Even in my mind, even though I sat through a lot of that, I'm glad we have those assets out there today, and I'm glad that the airport has those resources. And they probably are about $25 million a pop in value in terms of the hangars, and they're fully being employed as we use them now.
All right, thank you. With that, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.